Welcome to the Flight of the Next podcast. I am Holly here on Gadigal land in Sydney, Danny Avis also on Gadigal land in Sydney, and we have Alex in Te Whanganui Atara, Wellington. Welcome. We've got 3 matches to talk about today. We'll talk about both of the men's matches at once. We had away to Perth Glory. That's always a tough match. It finished 0-0, so we got a point out of that. And then at home, we beat Adelaide 3-2. That was 2 goals from Ben Old and 1 from Oscar Van Haddam. That was potentially already Ben Old's anyway. So thoughts on those matches?
Yeah, I'll go first. Look, I think solid, would have to say. A point away from Perth is good. I think most teams would take that with the distance, with the travelling, the late kickoff. We also had one of our main players out. We weren't particularly impressive. We had a bit of a strange lineup with Finn Conchie in the forward line. Chiefy did explain why he did that. It seemed to make sense to him anyway, although he didn't offer that much going forward. But as soon as we brought on the big guns in the second half, Kraev, Zawada, Barbarousis, I think it was, we were very dominant over them. And it was only Ollie Sale, like a really, really good save, like he used to do for us against Zawada, that stopped us winning it. So when you consider how far we've travelled, the time difference, the fact that Perth have been scoring a lot of goals, I was pretty happy with the 0-0. We weren't in control of the match as much as we have been previously. But as I say, point away from home in Perth, I'll take that definitely.
Yeah, I'm the same. Point away in Perth, definitely good. I think we could have won it. The subs you talked about, especially, were really great. Zavada and Bojra Kraev, I think, had exceptional games after they came off the bench. And Conchie, I also think Conchie, had an all right game. He had a few good runs going forward. I think there was one time where he could have squared it to Ben Old or someone else, but instead he chose to shoot. And then there was a moment later on where I think he squared it, but he should have shot. So, if he kind of got those muddled up. He was probably trying to make up for the first one with that shot. But yeah, it was a solid performance. I think Chiefy and the boys would have learned a lot from it.
Yeah, the stats were basically dead even. And yeah, Ollie Sale putting up that crazy save. I think he was actually player of the match for Foot Mob as well, which probably goes to show how well he did play. I think we could have potentially had a win there, but like I said, a point away to Perth is nothing to sneeze at. I was wondering how you guys thought our new academy players were going. So thinking of Matt Sheridan, Isaac Hughes, Finn Conchie. How have they been going for you guys? I mean, we talked briefly about Finn Conchie.
Finn Conchie, he hasn't really stood out. He hasn't jumped out and come in and been completely comfortable in the team like other players seem to have done, like Sermon's done, like Kelly Heald has done, where they've stepped in and the odd little slip here and there, they've looked like they've been playing forever. But he seems to be getting slightly better. As I say, he didn't play too badly, bizarre position up in Perth. And the game against Adelaide, I thought, again, when he came on, he did some really nice stuff. So it may be just he's getting there a bit slower. Isaac Hughes started against Perth, played in a 5 in the back, was excellent again, as he was in the game against MacArthur. Just calm, comfortable, never looked out of his depth, knew what he was doing, knew where his teammates were around him. Really looked classy. I would happily have him playing for us, any time. So if he's a centre back, if Sermon goes out, or even Wharton goes out, happy to have Isaac Hughes in there. So pretty comfortable with that. Sheridan, I haven't really seen enough of, I think, to say. But Kelly Heald, I think, has been good, and again, a lot better than a lot of his critics. I don't see why people are criticising him. He's been excellent in defence, and he's starting to come forward a little bit better, even though it's obviously not a natural thing for him when he gets further up. But he still tries, still makes the ground, and just hasn't made any mistakes, which you sort of expect for younger players. And the lack of mistakes they've actually made is really quite impressive, considering they're 18 and this is their first sort of professional stint.
Yeah, I just want to highlight Isaac Hughes. I think he's been exceptional coming into an already exceptional backline. I think part of it does have to go down to the way we play. Adam Griffiths, our assistant coach. He's in charge of the defensive tactical side of the game, I think. We kind of we kind of just cram everyone in the box. Like, it's really compact, tight defending, so it's really hard to break through, which makes it a lot easier for a young defender to come in. Like, if you're playing high line, playing out of the back, which we do some of the times. We do like to mix it up a bit. But that is a lot more difficult for young players. And a back five, 3 centre backs. We saw with Finn Sermon a couple of seasons ago. He came in, and then we started playing a back three, and he looked pretty good. He didn't look too far out of his depth, but I think comparing Finn Sermon in his first season and Isaac Hughes in his first season, I think Isaac Hughes would just have the edge, to be honest. But so does the rest of the squad from that season. But I've been really impressed with Isaac Hughes. I hope I can see him, play more, or at least play the same amount as he has this season, next season, because Finn Sermon not playing after his first season, his kind of breakout season, I think it didn't do him any favours.
Good. Should we move on to the Adelaide game again? Adelaide's really hard away, and we always seem to do poorly about them away, and I always sort of worry when we play them, but we actually played quite well. I did get a little bit worried right at the end when Ibisuki put away a goal. It was in like the 94th minute, and thinking, are we actually going to bottle this at the last minute? But we didn't, and Ben Old, as always, incredible.
Yeah, look, it's a good 3 points. I don't think we played particularly well, to be honest. We definitely deserved the win. We were better than them in pretty much all ways. But yeah, I was like you. It was like, okay, are we going to blow this? The Phoenix of old may have done that. But, just defensively, we're a little bit more tighter. We definitely didn't control the game as well as we have done. We were going forward, which we tend to do at home rather than sort of sitting in a block. But they were getting through us much better than other teams seem to have been. And I'm not sure why that was. There were a couple of mistakes. Finn Sermon made 2 mistakes, which were surprising because they were obvious, because he doesn't do that, and he made 2 obvious mistakes. I saw Rufer make a couple of mistakes as well, again, these are surprising, and they really stand out because they don't normally make them. So we just weren't really up to the races. I'm not sure why that was. Possibly with Salas playing in his position, playing instead of other ones. I really liked him. I really enjoyed watching him play. He pops up everywhere. He's never seen a 50-50 tackle. He doesn't think it's a 60-40 tackle. He slides from distance and has yet to actually get a yellow card, which I'm amazed at. And I think that is actually partly down to a bit of his skill in terms of how he attacks a ball. And he's great to watch. But I'm just wondering if he unbalances it a little bit or doesn't quite stay back when he's supposed to stay back. And Chiefy did sort of mention that at the end, where he sort of praised him, but said he's still got a bit to learn in terms of our system. So it's possible that Salas in there gave them a bit more options going forward when we weren't particularly prepared for them, where we would normally be prepared for them. And that meant we weren't quite in control. And what I really liked to see was that instead of just throwing either Hughes on and going to 5 at the back and going, okay, let's just pin this game down, lock it down. Chiefy went, no, let's throw people forward. Let's get everyone who can run fast off the bench, stick him on the pitch and see what happens. And that it worked. We scored a goal within sort of 30 seconds of the goal, all those 4 substitutes coming on. And we could have scored 2 or 3 more, let's be honest. We had the post a couple of times. Ben Old could have had a couple. Crieff could have had a couple. We really should have put him out of sight. We didn't, but we still held on to win. So it's a good victory. Didn't play especially well, but it was pretty entertaining because we were going forward a lot, and also they were going forward a lot. So as a match to watch, it was fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Phoenix of old wouldn't have gotten 3 points from that. We probably would have lost at 2-1 or 2-0 or something like that. As with Houston Salas, I do think that is an important part in kind of the individual performances that we're looking for. You pointed out Finn Sermon and Alex Rufer. I think just adding a new midfielder in, because, Chiefy's tactics, they rely on the individual and they rely on like the little small parts to come together to form a whole. And if one tiny part of his whole tactic isn't working, it kind of spreads to the rest of the tactic. Not saying it was tactical issues, but it can spread to elsewhere on the pitch for us. And Houston, he doesn't speak the best English. I think there's a couple of coaches that can speak okay-ish Spanish, but no players. So it must be difficult to, communicate to him where he wants to be. You playing with a midfield of largely Alex Rufer and Nick Pennington and sometimes Mo Alte for the whole season, and then you get a new player in that can't speak English. It's going to take a while to start firing with that new player. But it's a really great testament that we can still get the 3 points after not playing that well individually.
Yeah, I mean, we commented on Twitter for the Little Corner of Yellow. We said, like, defensively we didn't play that well, and someone excelled there. Not sure who that actually is, but they said if that's our defensive laps game, I'm happy. And I think that's a really good point. That if that's how we defend when we defend poorly, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the last 2 games, you could say we haven't played at our best, so we've got 4 points out of them. That's why we're top of the table. That's what top of the table teams do. They get points even when they're not playing particularly well. And other results have gone our way a little bit, but if we can keep on doing that, and again, players are starting to come back to fitness now. It's looking good. I hate to say it, but it's looking good.
Poor old Alex Paulson had his penalty saves record. It's not a blight on it, but he has conceded another penalty, which is shocking. It was, to be fair, a very, very good penalty, and the fact that he got a hand on it is really a testament to how well he's been trying to save penalties. But yeah, so he did concede one there. Also, congratulations to Oscar Van Hatten, his first A-League men's goal. People were saying that it was going in from Oldie. I personally think that if there's any doubt in your mind when that ball comes across, you just put it in yourself. You make sure of it. Because I think in the moment, it was only on the replay that I was looking, I was like, yeah, it probably would have gone in. If there's any doubt at all, just put your foot into it, put it into the back of the net. It's all right. You can just claim it. It doesn't really matter who scores it at the end of the day. It's still getting us those 3 points. But yeah, I think Van Hatten was getting a bit more stick for it than perhaps he may have.
I think, he's a striker. You score a goal, any goal you can. If Van Hatten had kicked that on the goal, David Ball would absolutely have booted it into the goal and wheeled away saying, yeah, first goal of the season. Everyone come and see me. So, if Van Hatten didn't put it in, Ball would put it in. It's unfortunate for Ben Old, he didn't get a hat-trick, but, that's just the way it goes. I don't think Ben Old was too bothered, as you say. I think it was more a bit of banter rather than anything else. But really good for Van Hatten to score. I've been fairly critical of him up until this season. I think he's been a bit better this season. If that gives him more confidence, then great. We saw the shot he had after that, which hit the post, which would have been an absolute screamer if it had gone in. So, hopefully he can push on from us.
Yeah, I wonder if it was the fact that it was Old's second goal that made Van Hatten get the touch on it. Because I think if Old was on a hat trick when he did that shot, I don't think Van Hatten or Ball would have been as eager to put it in the net and kind of let Old get the goal and get the hat trick. Hat tricks are quite rare, especially from a young player such as Ben Old. But yeah, it's good to see him get his first goal.
Any of what's on the men's matches? Oh, what's our next match? I forgot to look that up before. City, away to City. So there will be, I'm sure, a great turnout from the Melbourne Phoenix supporters group. Shout out to those guys. If you're at the match, go and join them. You can't miss them. They're loud. They've got, apparently, a brand new banner is going to be unveiled, and they won't even show it to us. So it should be good. We have a shit record in Melbourne, to be honest, for any game. But City is pretty crap. So we really need to keep getting results. I would like to think we can get a win. It wouldn't be by much, I'd say.
Yeah, look, City are not in form at the moment. And when they fail, they tend to fail big. They let in a lot of goals. So it could go either way. We could have an absolute hatful against them. Or, if they get a goal in early, who knows? I think, we're good enough to beat them. And I think it'll be I don't think it'll be a draw. I think we'll win or we'll lose, but I think we'll probably win. Um, yeah, and fingers crossed we do. Just one thing I just wanted to mention is just about Chiefy, and I don't know if you watched Chiefy's interviews after the match. They're really informative. He's really started to come out of his shell in terms of describing his tactics and what he's doing and why he's doing it. I think reporters must love it because they get such detailed information as opposed to some managers who will just say, "Yeah, well, boys went out and did gave 100%, and I thought I'll give the young lad a run around." Chief is giving it all away. He's putting it all out there. Tactics. Yeah, I wanted number 9 to come here and number 6 to go down there, and this is why I brought that player on at that moment. It's really informative to listen to in terms of learning about tactics. He's obviously got a lot more confidence now that what he says is making sense, and he's confident in that. Yeah, what I'm doing is the right thing, which obviously he is. We're top of the table. So, but yeah, really good to listen to.
I mean, so he was the A-League's All Access star last week. So if you haven't watched it yet, go onto YouTube I don't know if it's still called Keep Up, but go onto YouTube for the A-Leagues and you'll spot that there. It's about 10 minutes long. It's absolutely worth the watch. What a guy. All right. Shall we move on to the women? The women kicked off slightly before the men. I do hear that the match was played in Sky Stadium, but we'll go to you for how that worked out, Alex. Yeah, what a wild game. We honestly were really poor in the first half, really poor. Depressingly poor. The second half was pretty good though. So it wound up 5-3. There was an own goal that was scored by a Victory player, Mickey Robertson, in the 90th minute and Mariana Spekbayer in the 91st minute. So 5-3. That's a real goal fest.
Yep, it was a bit of a goal fest. It was. I don't think it was the best game. I think it was a bit embarrassing for us, a bit embarrassing for Victory. The quality of the goals scored weren't the best. 2 from corners, just poor defending, and then 1 straight from kickoff. I think it's a bit embarrassing for the league and for football in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty to watch at all. So I watched the first half live before the men's game, and I was really glad the men's game was on, so I could turn it off and not feel bad because it was horrible to watch. I mean, you think about goals where commentators call them coach killers because they do something so stupid and annoy the coach, but some of those goals were like fan killers because I just didn't want to support this team anymore because they were just being so bad in the first half. It was, and I'm not going to like that. Obviously, you want to support them all the way through, but I mean, the first goal when the which Cross came over and Goad, I think for Victory, she was just standing by herself in the penalty area, and Davison could see her. She was behind Barry. Did Davison say anything to Barry? Well, I don't know because we can't hear. But it was just comical and schoolyard defending. And then the next 2 goals were identical because we didn't have anybody on the far post. So they put a corner in. Izzy Cox actually heads it over Foster. So again, communication there. And then they've got a player at the far post who puts it in. They get a corner 5 minutes later. Exactly the same happens. It goes over to the far post. We haven't got anyone there on the far post. The only defender we have isn't even goal side of the defender. So it was just terrible to watch. Chidiak's goal, which went down as a Foster on goal, was a bit of a blinder. So not much you can do about that. It was a great shot, although she did get given a free shot at the edge of the area. So so when I turned over to the men's match, that's all I saw of it. And then I watched the second half later. Much better, much more improvement. Obviously, we made a couple of subs, and I imagine Temple had done a bit of shouting. And there was definitely more commitment and more running. Technically we won the second half 3-1, right? So I don't think Victory were necessarily trying very hard, but that was an okay half. Even though we weren't particularly in control, we still didn't play especially well. But they kept going and they kept going for the 95th minute and got a couple of goals, so that's nice to see, and good for Mickey Robertson to get a goal as well. A bit of crack around Spekmara as well, because she always works really hard, and she showed that in the second half as well.
I feel like maybe the fact that many people either turned off or stopped focusing on the game at halftime left you with a really awful feeling of man, that was bad. When you watch the second half, if you were to watch it all in one go, once the final whistle went, you'd still be really disappointed with the first half, but I think the second half may have made up for it a little bit. But it is what it is. Alex, they show the match on the big screen at Sky Stadium. How did that go?
Yep. So in Sky Stadium, there's two big screens. There's one, I think there's one at the south end, one at the north end. They were showing it at the side that Yellow Fever is on, so it's kind of to our left and on a bit of an angle. It wasn't the best quality stream. It was a bit pixelated and it's hard to see from that far away. I think it was a bit delayed as well after Mickey Robertson scored her goal, and we were celebrating in Yellow Fever. There were a few people yelling that we've actually scored two, and Mariana Speckmeyer's got one as well. I think that confused a bit of people. I was definitely confused about how we scored two in such a short moment because you don't see that very often. I think a few people had the stream up on their phone. I think it would have been a bit confusing for people who don't support the woman, but hopefully because I think a lot of people don't really realise that we have a women's team, maybe. And Yellow Fever is we support we support the men and the women, but there's a lot of people in Yellow Fever who don't support the women, and I think seeing Yellow Fever cheer when the women score a goal at a men's game, I think that kind of might have been a bit eye-opening for a lot of the people in Yellow Fever.
Oh, that's good to hear. I hope it's something that is considered moving forward, not just by the Knicks, but otherwise by clubs when there's a clash, because often your feed isn't that great when you're watching on your phone because everyone's trying to watch on their phone, and it depends on what your Wi-Fi is like or your cell phone reception is like. So it was a great initiative to see. Great initiative. So for the women, we have the away trip to Perth. Perth have sort of fallen off in the last however many games. They've still done well at home, but the last time Perth won a game was on the 31st of December, and it was against Mariners. Every other game has been a draw or a loss. They started so well. Don't know why they've fallen off. I guess, a pity for them. Good for most other people. I don't know if we can win against Perth because it's an away match and it's really far away. What do you think? I'm not that hopeful, but
Yeah, I'm not particularly confident either. Unfortunately, the team just hasn't shown really enough in any of the games, even at home, to say that they're going to turn this around. I know we've had some issues in the last couple of games. We were losing some of the Ferns, but really, I think our big problem of the midfield is just still there, and we haven't worked out the solution to that. I don't know what the solution is either. I have no idea. I don't know if we've got the players to solve that problem this year. But unless we've got a way that we can really take control of the game and affect the tempo of the game in field, getting that ball through to Cox and Speckmeyer, who I think are very decent players. I don't really see how we're going to be able to beat teams that are set up well and can just pass around the edge of the midfield or go through the midfield if we're out of position or we haven't got someone sat there. I'm not sure Kate Taylor's the answer. Michaela Foster was in midfield the weekend. I don't think she's the answer either. We had Fraser and Winnan there, and they're both very skillful players, very good technically. And when they did pass it between each other, it looked really nice, but it didn't really lead to anything. And they're not going to control the midfield either because neither of them are particularly strong in terms of the tackling, in terms of winning the ball as well. I don't think really, and we could play the two of them together. It's either one or the other, I think, unless we're going really gung-ho. I quite like Winham, actually. I thought she did quite well. She, in terms of the last game, she did pretty much everything that was good about her attacking. She's got a great range of passing, which was nice to see, but she needs someone behind her to win the ball and give it to her, and we don't really seem to have that at the moment. So, long-winded, yeah, I'm not very helpful.
I think Kate can be that person, but she's just been missing because she was injured last week and then on Fern's duty the week before. So I think maybe it's not that we were playing great all the time with Kate, but I feel like we played better with Kate in that anchoring defensive midfield role. But we can't just be reliant on one person because they could be injured.
Yeah, I think it's a bit hard to be hopeful for any away games Phoenix women play at the moment. But Perth, they're not in the best form at the moment. They haven't won a game all year. Actually, they kind of had a similar story to us. They started the season really strong, and then they've fallen off a bit since then. But away in Perth, it's always a tricky scenario to go into, especially since the game is kicking off at midnight New Zealand time.
I don't know whether they have, but I'm hoping they've flown straight there after playing in Melbourne. I don't know. I hope so, but it might not make the difference anyway, so we'll see.
It's going to be interesting to see what Temple does. His social media afterwards was very unsurprisingly sort of down, if you like. I'm actually not unsurprisingly because they let in 5 goals, but normally he's very sort of positive and, we go on to the next one and work and this one. It was very much like, I don't know what happened and I'm not sure what we can do. So it's going to be a real test of his coaching, I think, to see what the team does and how they play. Hopefully, again, to be optimistic, this might be, a kick in the arse that they need, and they'll come out and play for pride and maybe get something. As they say, Perth aren't particularly on form, so maybe if they can sneak a win here, and then I think we've got a couple of home games coming up. If we can get some points there, perhaps we can scrape into the 6.
All right, well, eventful, having had 3 games to discuss there, and it will be interesting to see how we go in the weekend coming up. I hope everyone who attends does enjoy it. I did want to have a quick chat about the big topic of the round, particularly in the A-League men, which was the interactions, we'll say, between police that are at games and fans. Now, I've never seen heavy-handed policing when I've attended matches at Sky Stadium. In fact, I barely even realised there are cops there. Some of those other places, all of a sudden there are tons of cops. There were a ton of cops at the Sydney Derby. So I actually went with a friend of mine just as a neutral. And it was actually crazy. Like the beginning of that match was incredible atmosphere because they had that massive 220 long metre tifo that went round. The RBB were going crazy. The Cove were going crazy. And then 10 minutes into the game, all of a sudden the RBB just walk out. They all just walk out. And everyone's sitting there going, well, are they walking out because the Wanderers have conceded 2 goals in quick succession? Like, are they angry? Turns out, and if you actually, the best place to get the information from the RBB about this is there's a podcast called RBB TV. You can go on YouTube and watch that, and they give a very good description of everything that day happened, and it was deeply concerning. So basically, they had a bunch of people across the stadium for the tifo. And then they had arranged, the TIFO was authorised, and they had arranged with stadium security and the club and all of that those RBB members who were displaying the TIFO could then go back down and then enter into their regular bay and sit in their regular bay or stand, as it is. And the cops wouldn't let them back in. The cops just wouldn't let them back in. And then the cops started shoving. Oops, we're still there. The cops started shoving people and arresting people, including kids, not letting guardians see the kids that have been arrested. There's been video footage that's come out that's super concerning. The other one that happened was in Brisbane Raw. So that was New South Wales Police, where they show up with like the riot cops. These aren't regular cops; they're the cops that like deal with bikie gangs and shit like that. They come looking for trouble, is the sense here. So anyway, Queensland Police, it was a similar kind of thing where the Den were marching. It's not really much of a march. It's not that far, but they were marching to the stadium, jumping around, having some fun. And a cop gets in there and starts like screaming at people and shoving them. And it's just, I feel like the cops don't understand active support, or there's like a prejudice. And often it's easy to think, well, cops are only going to get like shovey with the fan groups that have bad reputations, that like maybe they let off flares, which is obviously it's illegal over here, or maybe there's some pushing or someone says something to a cop. But like after watching what I saw on the weekend, it really occurred to me that like that could be us. Honestly, those cops would not give a fuck. Like they were straight up saying that they just started grabbing anyone and fucking throwing them out or arresting them, and it didn't matter who they were. I'm like, we could get caught up in that. We're like one of the chillest active support groups. We pride ourselves on being one of the like friendliest and open and nice, and we don't cause trouble. But I don't think that matters anymore. I don't think that we have to be perceived as troublemakers. I think that could fucking happen to anyone that's an active support because I think cops will just. I don't know. Danny, you watch football here as well in Australia. I don't know what your sense is, but apparently there were about as many right cops behind the Cove as there were behind the RBB. And it's just shocking. It's over policed and they're going to kill it. They're going to kill active support.
So, look, it's a really big and complicated subject, and there's no doubt that Australian police are not very good at policing sports crowds. It's particularly with football, but it's not just football. I go watch a lot of cricket as well, and you get to test matches, and they just throw out people left, right, and centre for absolutely nothing. Not what I would call antisocial behaviour, much less. So they're not very good at that, and you're right. They do go there expecting trouble. I imagine some of their KPIs are around number of arrests or number of evictions, when really it should be the other way around. But I think we've got to be fair and say, I don't think it would happen to the yellow fever because the vast majority of people in yellow fever are not confrontational in any way. Whereas the RBB, and so I don't know about the Den, don't know anything about them, but the RBB to some extent, they have built their reputation, their identity on being rebels, being confrontational. They wear their balaclavas, not all of them obviously, but enough of them that this is the reputation they get out. And I don't know what happened at the weekend in terms of, who threw the first punch. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't be punches thrown at all. But I would imagine that somebody in the RBB rocked up a bit when the cops wouldn't let them in because they were keen to get in and watch the match. And then the cops overreacted. Okay, so the cops shouldn't have overreacted, but someone from the and I understand one of the capos from the RB was one of the ones involved. Someone should have had the smart to realise these are the cops, these are the right cops. They're going to kick off. I need to be careful here, and let's have a talk to them carefully, or maybe I'll go get security, the person that I got the agreement that we could go back into the bay, get them down here and do that. I think you shouldn't have to manage cops yourself, but the reality of the world is you do have to manage cops yourself. And anyone who's had any interaction with the police, you have to know how to behave around them, because some of them, not all of them, and it depends on what situation you're in, but some of them are not very good at their job. They do not de-escalate; they will escalate because, again, especially riot cops, that's what they enjoy doing. I have a lot of experience watching football in England, where I grew up, and I grew up in the midst of the biggest hooligan types in the 80s in the UK, and the cops were just like this. Football fans were considered much worse than they are here in Australia. There was a lot more football fans because it's the biggest sport, of course, and they were considered animals. And you could do whatever you wanted to a football fan, and nobody would complain. I've been spat on, sworn at, punched, kicked, thrown downstairs by policemen. This is the age of 12 or 13, when I'm not doing anything at all whatsoever. And that was fine. And that carried on until the cops killed 100 people at Hillsborough. Okay. And then it was realised we have to do something. We can't let this carry on. And then the cops started actually realising that if we're going to police this, if we're not going to kill any more people, then we have to do it differently. And since then, policing at football grounds in the UK is easily the best in the world. There are no issues at football grounds in the UK. There are still some idiots, but the policing is fine. You did not have to go in fear of your life. I can go to pretty much any football game in England wearing my Bradford shirt and not be worried because there won't be problems there. If I want to look for trouble, I could probably find it if I really wanted to, because it's not going to happen in the grounds. And the police have learned how to deal with fans, working with the clubs, working with the fan groups. And that's what's got to happen here. But someone's got to... I think it has happened in the past. I think the RBB have had good connections with the police before and worked together. But if one head constable leaves or one RBB person leaves, that relationship is gone and it has to be rebuilt again. And it's very hard to rebuild if the RBB are now saying, well, we're not going to talk to anyone. We're going to boycott it. And the police will never admit they've done anything wrong because that's not what the police do. I think the APL have to take this very seriously. and look at what can we do. Can we have official APL stewards in there who will negotiate between the cops and the active, and they're the ones, so we can have someone who can be identified, well, maybe not one, maybe a couple of people identified who can talk between them. But also the active fans need to know that they've got to stay away from the cops. If the cops are looking for trouble, don't give them the excuse to hit you.
I think the thing
Again,
is,
they shouldn't have to do that, but that's the reality of what we live in.
that's fair, and there are some hotheads in the RBB, and so that they will have given the cops an earful. But the thing is, there already are supporters marshals. They called over secchies who knew that they were allowed back into the bay, and when the secchies went over there to speak to the cops said, "Fuck off, or you're getting arrested." So this is the thing: is active support groups are already doing the steps that they know from the past that they need to do. Right, and the fucking Channel 9's like, oh, it was an authorised banner and shit. And that none of that's true. Like that, what fucks me off is, as much as I don't like the RBB that much, like I don't like them. They don't support their women's team. I don't like them, but like they had done everything right there, and yet that had happened. And then to see it happen with the Den as well. And honestly, I think that anyone is a target, and I understand the idea of managing police, which is not at all what we should do or have to do. But it's actually just like it gets to the point where I don't think it fucking matters when they want to kick someone's head in. I mean, not that they actually kick someone's head in, but if they want to like fucking arrest, apparently they arrested a 15-year-old, gave him a banning order, and like falsified the date of birth so that he looked like he was 18 on the banning order, despite the fact they were. It was just like a massive overreach. I think, I mean, there needs to be like perhaps for New Zealand as a context that the cops in New Zealand are seen in a lot better light than they are here. It wasn't that long ago that there was incredible corruption in the New South Wales police force. People don't, yeah. And also, I mean, unfortunately, an active duty police officer shot his partner and his partner's new partner recently, and they were told that they weren't welcome to march in Mardi Gras in uniform. So there's really a lot of dislike for cops here as well. So that's part of it. So yeah, I do see where you're coming from, Danny, but I still, it's frustrating that some of these things were already done and then we still have this fucking problem. And that's what makes me think you could do everything fucking right and still get your head to get thrown out or shoved when you're walking away or whatever. Alex, did you know that Danny and I have had our rant? Like, I mean, I guess you attend in New Zealand. Like I said, I've never really seen cops. Like they'll be there, but they're not very visible. I mean, what's your take?
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit grateful to grow up in New Zealand where cops are really chill and nothing really happens at football games. There's the occasional incident, but I'm not even. I don't even know if there are cops at Wellington Phoenix games. I've certainly never seen any. There are a fair few at the Women's World Cup. Scouting in between the aisles, just checking for anything going wrong. But at Wellington Phoenix games, it's mostly just red badge, the stadium security, who do everything. They check bags at the front, which is really chill. You could probably, would be the easiest thing to sneak something in. If there are some supporters that aren't being very nice, they'll come talk to them, give them a few warnings, and if that doesn't solve the issue, they'll kick them out. I think that happened a couple of weeks ago. Some people in front of Yellow Fever got escorted out. They also do the pitch security. If there's any streakers, they'll sort them out. And they're great. I've never really seen any problems with red badge security.
Reputation is sort of important. As you say, we go to see the Phoenix at Western Sydney Wanderers up at Combank Stadium. I never really remember seeing many cops there when we've been there either, when the Phoenix are playing. But the reputation is that the derby, the Cove, RBB is going to kick off, so the police will insist. And again, it's the police insist that they're there, and then the clubs have to pay for them, which is a great place to be in if you're in a business of cops. The police say, this game is high risk, so you need 400 cops, and you're going to have to pay for it as well. So the cops decide which games they go to, and they will do that based on reputation. Whether that reputation is true or not, that's what they're based on. And unfortunately, again, the RBB or the derbies will have a reputation of being high risk. And it's going to be very hard to get rid of that. And incidents like this, even when, again, as you say, Holly, the fans did everything right, they'll still be looking at, okay, well, how many ejections did we have? How many arrests did we have? Okay, that's a high risk match. We better put more cops on next time.
It fucks me off so much how, like, it's reported as well, though, like that Channel 9 report that came out where they were saying it was an unauthorized banner, and there's like a prejudice as well, not just like amongst perhaps the cops or security. It's like if anything bad happens at the soccer, then it's horrible violence, and they'll report on it, and they won't actually check what the media often won't check what the facts are. But if there's a massive punch up at a league game, they're like, oh, it's kind of like a boys will be boys. So they got kicked out, but the crowd behaved well. There's this prejudice that's infuriating. And so when this kind of thing happens, it just sort of it brings up that whole position that football has and the reputation that football has and the way that football is treated in the media, which is quite different to how it's being treated, how other sports are being treated.
It's very annoying, and it won't go away. I mean, as I say, everyone talks about football hooligans. I talk about English football hooligans. There haven't really been English football hooligans now for 40 years. It really hasn't been issues like that. But it's still, that's the stereotype of what football hooligans are, and this will fortunately stay in Australia. And look, I don't mind. I don't like it, but I accept that's where it's going to be. I don't care. The people who are saying that don't know anything, so stuff them. What worries me is that if it stops sponsors going into the league and going into football. And that's a worry. And that's what the APL should be worried about, because they want to be able to look at any company to be able to sponsor the league. And if a company thinks, well, it's maybe not family friendly enough because of, it's in the news because this or that, then they're not going to get those big companies coming in. The women's football here, sponsors are tripping over themselves to throw money at, the Matildas or whatever, because that's seen as very family friendly. It's great. They can do that. If men's football, or the A-League especially, doesn't have that reputation, and I said very hard to get rid of reputations, the APL are going to find it very difficult to get money invested into the league. So they should be taking this very seriously, and not taking one side or another, but trying to solve the problem, which will mean changes. It will mean the egos having to be put aside. Going to be difficult, but I think they need to take it very seriously and make it a priority.
All right, up the next. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again to chat about the football, those two matches that are coming up, which is pretty exciting. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
See ya.